on Friday, President Trump removed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown Jr., for, this General Brown openly, enthusiastically supported the Biden administration's DEI insanity, which included allowing transgender troops in our ranks, paying for their so-called gender reassignment surgeries, and paying for travel of service members seeking an abortion. Well, yesterday, General Brown made headlines for a LinkedIn farewell post where he highlighted what he thought he did best, quote, warfighting, modernization, and trust, end quote. Now, how steeped in this woke ideology is our military brass that they can confuse the use of preferred pronouns with killing those who want to destroy us? Here now to share more is one senator in what he is doing to strengthen our nation's military, because he's got some background there, is Senator Tim Sheehy of Montana. He serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, as well as the Veterans Affairs Committee. Senator Sheehy is a Navy SEAL and a former aerial firefighter. Senator Sheehy, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to get your take on this. It's interesting. We now have more members of Congress than we've had in recent decades who have actually served in our military, served in combat as a combat veteran. Do you think there's been a loss of focus in our nation's top brass?
Well, obviously there has been. That's not even up for debate. That's not a question. It's a fact. Unfortunately, we've seen the disastrous withdrawal in two wars back to back. President Obama first in Iraq when he pulled us out so he could run in 2012 for re-election and say he ended the war. And of course, we saw what that chaotic pullout led to, which was the growth of ISIS. And of course, the requirement to go back into Iraq yet again for the third time in 20 years. And then, of course, we saw President Biden's disgusting, chaotic, shameful withdrawal from Afghanistan, which is exactly what got me into politics in the first place. My wife also is a veteran of the Afghan war. She was a Marine Corps officer. So both of us saw that happen and realized that we were at a crossroads as a nation. So it combined with what you just mentioned, that we have drag queen recruiters out there. We're paying for transgender surgeries. In the meantime, we're hearing that our military bases, the money supposed to being spent on soldiers' food is being directed elsewhere. And of course, it's not crazy to assume that those funds are being directed towards, whether it's DEI issues or who knows where it's going. The fact is we don't know, and the Pentagon, as we know, hasn't passed an audit in years. So there's really no question as to whether the military has been focused on readiness and warfighting. It has not. That's its core mission. And the President, Secretary Hegseth, and of course, with the full support of the Republican Senate, we're going to try to get things back on track because our warfighters and the American people deserve better.
So, Senator Sheehy, how deep in the ranks will you have to go of those flag officers? I mean, I know the president's removed the top, and there's a couple of others that have been removed as well. But this has been years in the making.
It has been. And I think, the concept that there's this targeted campaign going after people, I just don't think that's accurate. I think what is accurate is what almost every administration does, which is everybody at the end of the day serves at the pleasure of their bosses in any job in America, in any job in the world. And what we've seen in the U.S. government over the past several decades, but especially the last few years, is this concept of unaccountability, where, well, I work for the bureaucracy that I rest inside. I don't really have accountability because I'm above that. I'm a civil servant. I'm a general. I'm a colonel, whatever I am. And the reality is everybody in the government serves at the pleasure of their boss, and their boss is the American people. And the will of their boss, the American people, is expressed through democratic elections in our constitutional republic. This president and the Republican Senate and the Republican House that were delivered to by the American people for the American people on November 5th said very clearly, we don't have confidence in our government or our military right now. We want change, and we expect to deliver that change. So what we're seeing here is a reorientation, and those who are not aligned with that reorientation and that focus are going to go away. And that would happen in any organization, any private business, any nonprofit, any organization who has a mission that is clearly stated, and those who don't align with that mission are going to be dealt with.
But that's somewhat of a new concept when it comes to government, because those principles have not been applied. We just see kind of one layer upon another layer, people pushed aside, kept there, but still pushing forward with their agenda. This is a new approach that we see that Donald Trump is taking.
Well, I'm not so sure it is. I think, in 1941, General George Catlett Marshall, who was a fantastic, he was the chief of the staff of the Army, ended up being our top military officer during World War II. did what was called a plucking board. He went through and cleared out what he called the deadwood of a lot of the officers who'd been held over during the interwar period between World War I and II, who were not what he deemed to be capable battlefield commanders. And he recognized we were going to need fighters. We were going to need barroom brawlers. We were going to need gunfighters who were going to be able to lead men into combat in extremely challenging situations. And that's how we saw someone like Dwight D. Eisenhower, who went from major in the late 1930s to a five-star general in just a couple of years. George S. Patton went from colonel to four-star general. Many of these officers who were junior and obscure leaders in the interwar period rose to rapid fame and success because they cleared out many of the interwar officers who did not have combat experience and relevant battlefield leadership experience and replaced them with a younger generation that did. Ulysses S. Grant was an alcoholic, deemed to be a complete loser, was kicked out of the Army. And then, of course, when the Civil War began, he was brought back to the Army and became the greatest battlefield general in the history of America up to that point, because he wasn't a great staff officer. He wasn't great in garrison. He wasn't a great politician. He was a combat leader, and he was meant for war, and he did a great job. So that's what we're seeing here. And again, I don't think it's necessarily new. You're absolutely right. It's certainly more recent. But we saw this. Obama got rid of some generals that he didn't align with. President Clinton as well did that in the 1990s. So I think this is nothing new. I think it's the process that we have to follow to ensure that the military aligns with the vision of the president and the American people.
Well, you certainly know your military history, Senator, and I agree there is a history there in the military, but we've not seen that across the board in government, which is what we see Donald Trump doing, is basically cleaning house so that he can start basically at ground zero building up and I think it's time. I mean, I think this is it's welcomed by the American people. We just have about a minute left, Senator. You said that the Republican senators are going to help the president in this process of getting our military focused. How so?
The most important role of the Senate, in my opinion, keep in mind I've been here 7 weeks, is the personnel business. We are in charge of helping vet, advise, and consent the cabinet secretaries, senior military officers. A lot of people don't realize all the generals and admirals have to come through the Senate for confirmation as well. We're in the personnel business. So we ensure that the people around the president who run our military, who run our civilian departments, are capable of doing the job and are aligned with the president's vision. So how we can best support the president is making sure we're getting his team in place quickly, which we are. We're on pace to be the fastest cabinet nomination, I think, in almost 30 years. So we're going to keep up that pace to give the president the team he needs to get the job done.
Senator Sheehy, thanks for joining us. Great to talk with you. Look forward to talking to you again real soon.
All right, thanks. Take care.